Start our recording. And good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending on which time zone you're in. Welcome to our monthly ISV solution product showcase, where we're having individuals come in and show their wares to our clients and let them know what's out there. Today we have John Michaels from KwikTag, who will be going through the KwikTag overview. KwikTag is a document management and workflow solution program that ties directly with GP, but it can also be utilized for users outside of GP as well. So this is Michael Gummel from Paradigm Technology Consulting, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to John in 1 second. But just before I do that, just to let everyone know, we are recording this, so I do have everyone on mute, just so we don't get a ton of background noise. If you do have any questions as we go through this, please utilize the chat functionality within the GoToMeeting. If we'll also, at the end, we'll go ahead and open it up, or we may stop at a couple of points along the way to open it up for questions as well. But please feel free to use the chat. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to John Michaels from KwikTag.
Perfect. Thanks, Michael. Hi, everybody. Really glad that you could join me here for lunch today, or if it's not lunch, just hanging out with me for a few minutes to kind of go over KwikTag. First of all, I want to apologize for my voice. I'm a little bit under the weather, and my voice is sort of giving out at sort of inopportune moments. So apologies for that in advance. Just bear with me. Let's just kind of go through the agenda that I've got prepared for today. It's pretty straightforward. So first of all, I just want to do a quick introduction to KwikTag, the company, and KwikTag, the product. Give you a quick, kind of a high-level, quick overview of our vision and kind of how we see ourselves being positioned in the marketplace. You know, document management is a solution that's targeted towards a variety of processes and a variety of business problems. The one that we'll focus on today is sort of the quintessential business problem that a lot of organizations use document management to tackle, and that's accounts payable. So before I actually get into the demo, I want to just do a review of the accounts payable process with you all to kind of level set on, you know, a likely overview of where you're at with your accounts payable process and where you can take it depending upon how aggressive and how visionary you want to be. And then I'll show you the KwikTag demo so that you can actually see how KwikTag would be applied to the accounts payable use case. And then, of course, I'll go through the chat console, take a look at your questions, and be happy to, you know, converse with you on anything that you think is important. So without further ado, you know, this is our vision. So KwikTag itself is a document management platform. We're up to version 5. Pay no attention to the little power of 3 there on the bottom right where it says KT3. The new brand is V5, and we're actually about to ship V6 in coincidence with convergence here in about 30 days. So the KwikTag platform is designed to be a document management system that has all of the document management capabilities that you need. And then on top of that sits what we call Quick Apps. And a Quick App is essentially that. It's a business application that comprises about 80% of what you're going to need by way of workflow and business routing, associating like documents and related documents together so that you can view them with one click. You know, reporting and other informational services that kind of give you a peek into how the system is performing, as well as, you know, specific stats and metrics related to your overall process. And all of that is bundled together, like I said, to give you about 80% of the functionality that you typically need for a given business process, with the ability to customize or modify or tailor the last 20% to your specific exacting needs. So the KwikTag platform then is one system designed for any process or any department where you have a document touching that process. So accounts payable, again, the quintessential example, but human resources is another department that's laden with documents and laden with processes that are surrounded by documents. Contract management, the sales process, marketing, you know, real estate management for those of you that have that, warehouse management, anywhere where there's a document, anywhere where there's a department managing a process or even cross-departmental processes, that touch point, QuikTag can manage that for you. So we're very much designed for Dynamics organizations. All of you out there are. But I want to be specific that even though we sell through resellers like Paradigm and VARs like Paradigm, we're not just limited to Dynamics users by any means. In fact, I would say the large majority of our users aren't Dynamics users. They're standalone users that aren't necessarily in finance and accounting. A good example would be in accounts payable or in the payables process, the people that have to approve invoices before they get paid are oftentimes not GP users or a Dynamics ERP user of another flavor. So those people would be QuikTag users, but not necessarily Dynamics users, just as an example. So any department or process, unique or independent of Dynamics, is also very fair game for what we do with the QuikTag platform. Okay, so let's talk about your AP process today. And I take this on pretty good information. We've automated probably 1,000 accounts payable processes for companies as small as 150 employees and as large as probably 6,000 employees. That's sort of our sweet spot. So we've kind of seen this over and over and over again. And what I want to take you through is sort of the top of the bell curve for what we see for companies that are managing accounts payable that don't have a system like QuikTag. So step one is, of course, you're going to receive an invoice from one of your vendors, and that's going to either come in, via the mail or via email. It doesn't really matter, how the invoice is coming into your organization. Ultimately, though, it has to be delivered to the accounts payable department, and then somebody from the accounts payable department is going to go ahead and enter that into, GP or whatever your ERP system is. Typically, then, you don't want to send out the original for approval. So you're going to make a photocopy. So you've got to take all these invoices, and if they're emailed, you've got to print them out. And if they're already in paper form, you walk them over to the copy machine, shoot a copy, and then hand deliver them to all of your various approvers. Now, if your approvers aren't in the same office as you, this is where things can get a little bit expensive because, of course, you've got to put them in envelopes and FedEx them out. And, of course, then it's accounts payable's job to keep track of all those invoices, where they've gone, when they've gone there, and who's got the ball. Ultimately, the approver is probably the person who's going to code it, or maybe accounts payable codes it. We've seen it both ways. But the approver codes it and then makes the decision to either approve or reject the invoice based on, is the dollar amount correct and were the goods received or was the services received, etc. Now, if the invoice is rejected, the process needs to basically go all the way back to the accounts payable folks, who then have to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to correct this? If it's approved, then it'll move on. It's entered into the ERP system already, so then it gets run in the check batch. A check is cut. It's signed. The invoice itself, with all of its coding and approval signatures, are filed away. The check is then manually signed, or perhaps it's stamped. The check is then mailed out, and then, of course, you're going to take a copy of the check stub or perhaps a copy of the check, and then file that away along with the original invoice. So this entire process, everywhere where you see an orange hand, that's actually a code for something. The orange hand is there to represent where you have a manual element to the process, or an element, or a manual node, if you want to call it, using the scientific term. So each one of these hands is a manual node dedicated to this process. Now, as a result of all of that manual effort, the average accounts payable aging that we see is about 35 days from the time the invoice is received to the time that the check is mailed and everything is nicely, neatly filed away in its respective file cabinet. So 35 days on average. Now, that's assuming everything goes swimmingly, right? Now, if there's a problem or a breakdown anywhere along the way, especially where you have an orange hand where something is going to be manual, the cycle time can easily double. So this is an area where your vendors get upset because they're not getting paid on a timely basis. Audits might fail, or you might have trouble passing your audit because information isn't readily at hand, or perhaps it's missing or damaged. So all sorts of things can go wrong. 35-day cycle time is like best case scenario for doing your accounts payable process this way. So then let's say it's time to start automating accounts payable, and that's in fact why you're here today, because you want to see how QuikTag might be able to help you with that. So we're going to kind of move some of these nodes around. We're going to move some of these elements of the process around to show you what an automated accounts payable process might look like and what impact it might actually have on the cycle time itself. So first of all, you're going to receive the invoice, and instead of entering it into the ERP and delivering it into the ERP, delivering it to accounts payable, whoever receives the invoice first is going to immediately capture that invoice to the QuikTag system. So they're going to take all their invoices that they've received. If it's in the mail room, the mail clerk's going to do it. If it's accounts payable, the accounts payable are going to do it. They're either going to email the documents in, drag them and drop them in, or use a copy machine and scan them into the QuikTag system. So now everything is captured, everything is digitized, it is effectively secure, it's safe, and now we can actually start the process. So we're going to take all of these other manual nodes, making photocopies, hand delivering stuff, keeping track of who's got what, and all of that, and we're going to consolidate all that to say that the approvers are going to receive now that invoice for coding and for approving and review automatically by the QuikTag system. And of course, that's what I'm really excited to demonstrate for you here in a little bit today. So now the approve reject, we can move that up. And then once the invoice has been approved, QuikTag will automatically create an invoice voucher for you in Dynamics GP. So you don't actually have to create that voucher anymore as accounts payable. QuikTag will actually do it for you. So then we take the bottom section where all of these other manual nodes are, and we're just going to kind of rearrange those a little bit. So you're still going to run the check batch. You're still going to, take a manual copy of that invoice and perhaps either file it or, depending upon your document retention policies at your company, you might shred it and recycle it. You sign the check, you send the check out, but instead of filing the check with the invoice, you're actually going to automatically digitize that check so that there's a digital copy of it, and it will automatically be associated by QuikTag with the payment voucher that check paid. So you notice that there is less orange hands here, so there's less manual elements or less manual nodes to this process. Also, as a result of that, a lot less can go wrong. So just a very simple automation of this process can reduce your cycle time from 35 days down to 5 days, and that's what we're seeing with our customers that like to take their accounts payable process to this step. I would call this, just for those of you that are out there, I would call this kind of a level 1 automation of the process. It's the sort of easiest, lowest impact, least abusive, abrasive way to automate the process. And we can take it down from 35 days to 5 days. So that's a 700% improvement in cycle time, and of course everything that goes with it in terms of return on investment. Now, my contention to you is level 1 is great, and obviously it's got a lot of benefits, but there's still some manual data entry that needs to go on. In other words, the invoice comes in, regardless of how it comes in, you capture it. You still have to tell the QuikTag system using a level 1 automation process, you still have to tell the QuikTag system all about that invoice. So you've got to tell it what the dollar amount is, and you've got to tell it who the vendor is. And so my contention to you is life is too short for that manual data entry. It's not the best use of your time. So what I would contend then is to take it up to what I would call level 2 automation of the process. And so we're going to take the last level 1, and we're going to take a look at how you would even make it better. So the invoice is going to be received, except that what we would recommend is that you direct your vendors to email all of your invoices directly into the QuikTag system. So your IT people are going to set up a dedicated email address, or we can do it in our professional services organization. We can work with you on that. We set up a dedicated email address for QuikTag, and all of your vendors are basically going to email their invoices directly into the QuikTag system. So they don't have to touch human hands. You notice there's no orange hand here. So then instead of having to tag or scan the invoice, we have a new service, actually not that new anymore. It's probably about 9 months old. We call it ICE, and ICE stands for Intelligent Cloud Extraction. So what happens is the QuikTag server sends the invoice image up to the cloud. It's a secure cloud service that we provide. And the cloud service is essentially an OCR engine that extracts the data from the image and then sends that back down to QuikTag so that QuikTag automatically knows who the vendor is, what the dollar amount is, the date of the invoice, any line items, it can automatically GL code that invoice based on your vendor defaults, and it will then automatically route that invoice with all of the data and the coding to your to accounts payable or to your approvers, depending upon how you want your process to work. Most organizations that I've seen, even though ICE extracts the data, and that's normally what accounts payable would do, they still want accounts payable to put their eyes on it and make sure everything is accurate. And I totally get that. I totally understand. So in this third node, you would actually have accounts payable reviewing it, putting their eyes on it, making sure everything looks good before they release the invoice to one or more approvers. At that point, of course, the approvers are going to get email notifications saying you've got invoices you need to approve. They can either approve or reject from their email or directly within QuikTag, as I'll show you in my demo. And then QuikTag will automatically, once again, create that payables voucher inside of GP for you based on the data that was extracted by the Intelligent Cloud Extraction Service. So now I would contend, everything is pretty much not manual anymore. I mean, all of this is now being done electronically and digitally. So I would contend, why manually cut the check? Why not just move to an electronic funds transfer and eliminate all of the check review, check signing, and all of that? And of course, now you've got a completely maximally automated, if that's even a word, automated process for accounts payable, which can take what was once a 35-day cycle time, reduced down to 5 days, reduced down to a half a day, in fact, if you wanted to go that fast. The goal here is you control it. You decide how fast you want to go, how quick you want to cut your checks. Do you have vendors that will appreciate getting paid more quickly and reward you with discounts for early pay? These are all things that obviously we would work with you on to determine, what makes the most sense for your organization. How quickly do you want this process to go? But we've seen, improvements up to half a day total cycle time to get through this process. So hopefully by now, at least as it relates to connecting with you in terms of what your accounts payable process probably looks like, and then sort of sharing with you what the process would look like with QuikTag, let me actually show you what it looks like in the product. So I'm just going to head on over to QuikTag. And what you're looking at is, this is called the QuikTag User Client. And this is a browser-based application. It's actually, for those of you that are technically inclined, it's Microsoft Silverlight. And we chose Silverlight because it gives us what we felt was a really nice creative palette to build a very clean user experience for you, the user. And so what we're looking at here is I'm running this in Internet Explorer. I can run this in any browser. You notice I've got Chrome down here in my system tray, and I can run this in Chrome. I can run it in Opera. I can run it in Safari. It really doesn't matter. And up at the top in this gray area, this is called our taskbar. And the taskbar are basically buttons that take you to the various major areas of the QuikTag system. Currently, I'm sitting in what's called my work queue. Now, way over on the right, if you follow my mouse, you can see that I'm logged in as a user called Indexer. Now, in real life, this Indexer user would actually have a name, like John Michaels, for example. But for our demo purposes, we've got really generic names that are not particularly exciting, but they describe the purpose or the task that user is designed to do. So the indexer is essentially, in most cases, going to be your accounts payable person. What I want to show you in the work queue here is I've got a variety of different document types. This one happens to be an invoice. Now, when I mentioned level 1 automation earlier, level 1 automation would look something like this. The invoice was emailed in, or perhaps it was snail mailed in. You captured the invoice. It goes straight into QuikTag. But QuikTag isn't sure, because it didn't go up to ICE, it isn't sure what this document is. So as the indexer, it would be your responsibility to say, okay, this is an invoice. And once you designate it as an invoice, it'll then ask you for the fields that are required in order to appropriately route the document. Now, if you wanted to take this to level 2 automation, as I described, you notice there's an invoice down here at the bottom. Same exact invoice, except all of the data is automatically filled out for you. So it knows the vendor name, Beaumont Construction, because it pulled it from this part of the invoice right here. It knows the document number because it pulled it from this part of the document right there. It knows the document date. It knows the purchase amount. What's really cool is that QuikTag did a calculation here, if you want to call it that, a computation, and it was able to pull the vendor ID from your GP system based on the vendor name, their street address, their city, state, and zip code. So Beaumont Construction on Crestview Drive in Chicago, Illinois 60607 is actually Beaumont 0001, saving me the time of having to enter that in. So last, I have a choice here. If I want to use these comments fields, I can go ahead and leave a comment for the next person downstream in the workflow process. So I can say, please review GL codes and submit. And so I'll go ahead and submit the document. You notice it disappears from my work queue and then goes back to the next document in my queue. So what's happening now is the QuikTag workflow engine is picking up that document, and it's seeing that it's an invoice from Beaumont Construction for $5,656, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's looking at what we call the workflow matrix inside of the QuikTag workflow engine. The workflow matrix is something that we work with you to build for your organization on a process-by-process basis. So as we go through accounts payable and look to automate accounts payable, we will work with you to create your workflow matrix, which essentially is done in a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. We then import that spreadsheet into QuikTag, and that is the sort of auto-creation of your workflow matrix and all of your business rules. From that point forward, you actually manage your business rules inside of QuikTag. So if users leave, or if dollar thresholds change, or whatever drives your business rules for how invoices get approved by whom and when, you would manage that from this point forward inside of QuikTag. But the initial mass creation of your workflow is done using a workflow matrix. So in our workflow matrix, in our business rules, in this system, we're actually going to route this document to a user called Department Manager. Department Manager is the person who's responsible for doing the coding and the review. So I'm just going to refresh my view here. I'm going to select the document that we've been working with today, which is the Beaumont invoice. Again, you'll notice all of the data is still filled out. My comments, please review GL codes and submit. And then right above that, you can see I've got a GL distribution field where it's automatically selected the default GL codes for Beaumont 0001 in the Fabricam database inside of my GP system. So if I want to take a look at those codes, I click on this button. I get this little handy-dandy modal, as we call it in the software business. And this shows me my debit for repairs and maintenance administration and my credit to accounts payable. Now, if I want to change this, there's a variety of ways I can do that. I can go to my Beaumont company defaults, and this will show me the default GL codes that I set up for that vendor inside of GP. Or I can pull up my entire Fabricam Inc. chart of accounts just by clicking on View All. And then if I wanted to say add another GL code for perhaps, I don't know, computer equipment, I would just go ahead and double click. It adds that, and then I can fill out the dollar amounts appropriately to make sure everything balances out. And as long as the functioning totals of debit and credit balance out, I can go ahead and submit this. If the balances don't match, of course, it's going to stop me, let me know that the numbers don't match up, nor do they match the purchase amount, and I need to keep trying until I get it right. So I'll just remove this, submit, and now in the comments, I can either leave this here or I can say, please approve and submit. So again, document's going to leave my work queue. The document is going back to the QuikTag workflow engine. It's checking the workflow matrix, and it's saying, okay, who does this need to go to now? We now have a fully coded, completely reviewed invoice, and in our world, it needs to go to the CFO. So I'm just going to switch to my third tab here. Actually, I don't want that third tab. I'm going to open up a third tab. You get to watch me log in, which I know is extremely exciting. Just bear with me while I do that. And we'll log in as CFO. You'll notice it defaults to my work queue. Now, the CFO's work queue has a lot of stuff going on. We've got contracts that the CFO needs to review, employee requisitions that need to be approved, offer letters that need to be looked at before they go out the door, checks that need to be reviewed before they're cut. So there's a lot going on, and what I really want to do is just get rid of the noise and focus on only the stuff that I want to actually work with right now. So I'm going to go ahead and click this filter selection, Invoices GL Entry. And so this is going to only show me the documents that are, invoices that have been GL coded. And I'll open up my preview screen. You can see the invoice here. You can see all of the information on the left-hand side. Now, if I want to look at the codes, all I have to do is right-click on the document and say Show GL Distributions. And down below, I'll get a listing of the GL codes that were either automatically prepared by KwikTag or overridden, if that's a word, by the department manager. So everything looks good, I can approve. If I decide everything doesn't look good, I can reject, and then I have to specify comments, and I can say, GL codes were incorrect, please review and recode. Okay. So what that's going to do then is it'll reject the document, and then based on the business rules, it'll send it back to accounts payable. Accounts payable would need to then review it and release it to department manager. Department manager would then have to recode it with the correct GL codes. If everything looks good, I can go ahead and approve it. Again, it leaves my work queue, and the document then goes on to the next person in the approval cycle, if in fact there is one. In my demo environment, to save time, there's absolutely no reason why we need to have multiple levels of approval. The CFO is kind of where the buck stops, both literally and figuratively. So where does the document go from here? Well, now we have a fully data extracted, fully indexed, fully reviewed, fully coded, fully approved invoice. It now goes, KwikTag will take that invoice and put it straight into GP, except we have one more holding place where the document will go, and that's called the GP work queue. So I'm just going to bring up any form inside of GP so I can access my additional menu. And by the way, if this looks different for you folks, it's because I'm running GP 2015 in my demo environment. So you'll notice that the menu ribbon up here is from GP 2015. If you're running 2013 or below, you probably have just the old, text menu system. That's the only thing that's different. We do run with GP 2013. We run with GP 2010. We run with GP 10. So we go back, pretty far from that standpoint. So if I hit Additional, View Work Queue, this is going to bring up a list of all of the invoices that have gone through their ultimate approval. So this is the one that we've been working with. You can see vendor ID Beaumont 0001. You can see the document number, the comments. If I mouse over, you can see this balloon pops up and shows me all of the data about this invoice. If I double click, it'll actually show me a copy of the invoice. And so from here, as the accounts payable person, all I need to do is assign this to a batch, and it will automatically vouch it. So I say create. I pull up a list of my batches. I say yes, and the document has been automatically vouched. So from here, if I want to find that document, I'll just go ahead and go to the John batch. Here is the John batch with the Beaumont vendor ID. I'll double click to bring it up. And you'll see that all of the data that was extracted by ICE is going to go ahead and populate all of these fields here. So, the vendor ID and the vendor name, the document number, the document date, the dollar amounts. If I pull up the distribution back screen, it's going to show me my debits and credits that were GL coded. But, sort of the crescendo of all of this is if you ever need to see a copy of the invoice itself, you can do that from the additional menu by simply saying View Documents. When you select View Documents, it's going to do a query into the KwikTag system and show all documents related to this particular voucher. So if I say View Documents, I've got one document, and it's the invoice. So from this moment forward, my finance users can access all of the related documents to their GP transactions, including payables, sales orders, HR, any of these modules that you see here. Documents can be accessed directly from the transactions themselves using the additional menu. If I had any other information or documents that I wanted to tag to this transaction, I can do that using the tag command. So again, the additional button, I say tag documents, and I get this little dialog box that pops up. For those of you that have seen KwikTag before, you're very familiar with our patented barcoding system. So the barcoding system is what allows us to uniquely identify physical paper documents so that when they're scanned, they automatically know where to file inside of the KwikTag system and what GP transactions to relate themselves to. So I would have an actual dispenser on my desk with barcodes in them. These barcodes are pre-printed, they're sequentially numbered, and they're globally unique, so no number will ever repeat itself. And so this 9-digit barcode number corresponds to the next label that's coming out of the dispenser on my desk. If I had a paper document that I wanted to tag to this transaction, I would just go ahead and say, if I wanted to leave a comment, I could. I would grab the label, I would place it anywhere on the lead page of the document that I want to scan. I would click OK, and that would create what's called a reservation inside of the QuikTag system for this particular document. Then I could scan that document when it's convenient for me at a later time, and based on this barcode number, QuikTag will automatically associate it with this transaction. Okay. So if I don't have a paper document, if I have rather an electronic document, perhaps even an email, and I'll just say email from Outlook just for fun, I can go ahead and open up my email and just find an email that I want to drag in. This one looks good. It's got an attachment. It's got a bunch of stuff going on. All I need to do is drag and drop from my Outlook over to the QuikTag dialog box. You'll see that my mouse becomes a plus sign. And it then says, are you sure that you want to attach this email? I'm going to say yes. Now, it's not going to burn that barcode number. It's actually going to assign an electronic barcode number to that document. It's going to create a copy of this email, so I can actually go ahead and delete that email completely from my inbox if I want to, and I'll just erase all of my deleted items so that I can show you that it's gone forever. And then when I go to my additional view documents, it may take a minute or two to process, but if that email has been processed, now you'll see here's the original invoice, and here's a copy of the email. So if I want to view that email, all I have to do is double-click, and up it comes. You'll notice, again, it's not coming from my Outlook. It's actually a copy of that message with the file attachment preserved. And that's great because that way I can archive or delete or folderize or manage my Outlook however I want, and QuikTag is going to maintain a copy of this email, for all time. And I can continue to add all sorts of electronic documents or paper documents to this transaction as I see fit. Okay, so that is the accounts payable process. I will take a look and see what questions we might have since I've been talking for a while. Let's see. I might pronounce this incorrectly. Michael KwikTag, if I pronounce your last name incorrectly, I apologize. You said, I've seen these OCR recognitions before, i.e. from your competitors, and have never seen it 100% accurate. How do we make sure the data is accurate? Of course, that's a great question, and you're right. OCR is almost never 100% accurate. A couple things that I want to point out. One is we selected an OCR engine. We did not build it ourselves. We focus on the document management software. We actually partnered with a company called Artzel, who makes an OCR engine called Doc Alpha, and that is embedded into our product. So the ICE service is completely driven by Doc Alpha, and it is a class-leading, extremely accurate OCR system. So when I say extremely accurate, the industry average, going back, let's say 5 years, is around 90% character accuracy. Doc Alpha is about 98% accurate, and that's before you train it. So in other words, you can take a document and you can run it through the self-learning capability of Doc Alpha, and it will be 98% accurate. Now that's good, that's really good, but of course it still leaves 2% error. And so what we have is the ability to train your vendor invoices ahead of time. So what we've done with a lot of our customers is they send us invoice samples, and then we run it through what's called a document definition engine. That is a component of our ICE service. So we basically run these invoices through, and we keep running them through until the Doc Alpha system is processing them with 100% accuracy. So that way you can be guaranteed that once you actually run them through in production, QuikTag knows or ICE knows exactly where all the fields are located, exactly what they are, and exactly what the data represented by those fields should be. So when we've pre-trained invoice templates in the ICE system, we have experienced 100% accuracy every time. So that was a great question, and it gave me an opportunity to kind of talk about that process, so I appreciate it. Okay, next question. Michael again, excellent. How does this work with purchase orders where approvals aren't necessary as long as it matches the approved PO? Great question. So we have a quick app. So the quick app you just saw is for non-POs. So you very astutely asking, what do we do about POs? So what you do when you get an invoice that comes in that is related to a purchase order, if you run it through the OCR system, it's going to look to see if the vendor put the PO number on the invoice, which hopefully they did if they want to get paid. If it extracts a PO number, it then knows that that's a PO-related invoice, at which point it can run a background check. When I say a background check, I don't mean like you would if you were the FBI. I mean it actually checks the data related to the purchase order that you put in GP, and it compares to see if there's a match. So if you ordered a PO, if you had a PO with 5 lines on it and all the quantities and everything else, and if that invoice matched up exactly to that purchase order, then there's really no reason for a human being to look at it. It can go straight into it can go straight through QuikTag and go straight into GP as a matched invoice to that PO, and the next time you run your batch, you can go ahead and pay it. Usually, though, or not usually, some percentage of the time, whether it be a high percentage or a low percentage, the invoice that's coming in doesn't match the PO. And it doesn't match because, as you know, they were back ordered on some number of items, and so they're going to partial ship and partial bill. Or maybe there was an error on the invoice. Regardless, as long as the invoice doesn't match the purchase order, it will then, based on the business rules that you tell QuikTag with your workflow matrix, it will route that invoice to the appropriate person for what we call exception handling. So you have an exception invoice, and that invoice needs to then be run through the system. Perhaps it is something that you want to pay, in which case then you can release it for payment once you put your eyes on it. Or perhaps it is in fact erroneous, in which case you would want to then contact the vendor and get it squared away, get a replacement copy of the invoice, and then release it for payment. So that's basically how the PO process works. Okay, next question. If the POs are maintained in a different system, can you extract a flat file from the system to import into a different PO matching system? Okay, so you're raising POs not in GP, I'm guessing, and what you're saying, yes, okay, thank you. Yeah, so if you can take your purchase order data and you can create a time range and say this is the time frame that we're working with, you can absolutely export that, assuming you've got an export facility in whatever engine you use to create your POs. You can import that into QuikTag, and QuikTag will maintain that in our SQL database. And then when invoices come in, it will basically check against that PO table that we've created based on the extraction from your third-party PO system. So the long-winded answer was that. The short-winded answer is yes, that would work just fine.
John, I just wanted to add something in there as well. You guys also have a direct integration with the Paramount Technology Workplace tool as well, which is a requisition tool which allows the individuals to do requisitions via the web and pull that information and then auto-populate the purchase order in GP as well. So if people are looking at that route, that's another option as well, to have the ability to attach the documents right to the requisition and have that feed through as well.
Yeah, great call. I'm really glad you brought that up. I wouldn't actually not have thought to mention that. So yeah, we're very tight with Paramount. Anytime there's a new GP version, anytime there's a new Paramount version, we all sit down together and make sure that all the combinations of GP and Paramount and QuikTag work together. We have dozens and dozens of customers that use Paramount for requisitioning and then want to be able to use QuikTag for document management, and it's just a great system. We're very happy with the results, and our customers are too. So one question that I get is pretty common is pricing. How is this priced? So the QuikTag platform itself can either be used for document capture only, and then of course you would add users on top of it. And so for smaller companies that aren't ready to take the plunge into process automation, but they do want the document capture capabilities where you can scan documents or capture documents directly from transactions in GP. So for example, if I were to just go find one of my transactions here, so the ability to say additional and then tag document and either tag paper or electronic documents to transactions in GP. That system is probably somewhere around $15,000 depending upon how many users you need. The more users you need, the more expensive it gets. But that's all in. That includes professional services. That includes everything you need to get a basic capture system up and running. And we do have customers who are on the smaller side who want to start with capture and then move to workflow and quick apps a little bit further down the road. So your investment would be probably somewhere in the $15,000 range. Also, if you were going to pair us up with Paramount, you would only need a capture system. You would not necessarily need the workflow capability, at least as it relates to managing payables. So you can expect that the QuikTag portion would be somewhere, again, in that range, $15,000 or so, depending upon how many users. So, and that is a one-time fee. The only additional annual fee that you would have would be a 20% support and maintenance fee. So 20% not on the whole $15,000, but just on the software portion. So of that $15,000, you'd probably be looking at about $8,000 or so, maybe $9,000 in software. So 20% of that would be, I don't know, let's say around $2,000 a year to give you unlimited support. We have 8 full-time support engineers right here in Phoenix, Arizona that work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and we work on off hours if need be. And you also get access to all software updates, just like you would with Microsoft Enhancement. So it's basically our version of Microsoft Enhancement. Now, if you decide that you want to go with a workflow solution, like let's say you were to buy Payables, which is the non-PO solution that I just showed you, again, depending upon how many users, you're probably looking at high 30s to low 40s to start in terms of price. We have actually implemented these for around the $30,000 range for a very small system. We've certainly implemented them way in the 6 figures for a large system with lots of users. And if you decide you want to layer in the OCR piece, that'll probably add maybe another 30% to the cost. So just to give you a ballpark range, $15,000 for basic capture is kind of where it starts. Maybe $35,000 to $38,000 is where it starts for a fully enabled payable system. The great news is that our quick apps themselves all cost under $10,000. So once you have the QuikTag platform in place, once you have a quick app like Payables in place, if you decide that you're ready for quick HR, if you decide that you're ready for whatever quick app you might need, the actual software cost of that quick app is generally $6,000 to $8,000. And of course, the users that you already have using QuikTag are completely usable for any further quick apps that you buy. So it is merely an incremental cost to add additional quick apps on top of your existing QuikTag platform. And so usually we can then go in and automate an entire department for $15,000 to $20,000. And then we go to the next department and it's $15,000, $20,000. So when you take a process that might cost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it the way you're doing it today, to come in and be quick app number 2, quick app number 3, quick app number 4, and so on and so forth, to have that cost $20,000 or less to automate a process that costs you $100,000, the ROI story just becomes very compelling as you add additional quick apps. Okay, that's all the questions that I see. Michael, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add, or if not, we can wrap up early.
No, I just wanted to mention, when we start throwing out some of these numbers and, $15,000, $30,000, $40,000, it sounds like an awful lot, but, the ROI on the product is really, a tremendous deal there where you start having, you start reducing the number of touches that individuals have to have on the paper. You reduce the amount of errors that occur because people are entering in the wrong amounts, or things are getting paid that shouldn't be paid because they weren't approved properly. So even though the numbers may sound high right off the bat, you really need to start looking behind those numbers and really delve into the savings that a process like this would facilitate for your organization.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure, and I wanted to just maybe add to that, which is one of the services that we provide for free is we have a series of business analysts that work here, and they're the ones that kind of get engaged when we start scoping out what your solution should look like and what you want your workflow matrix to be, et cetera, et cetera. Those individuals can work with our sales reps and you to conduct a full cost and ROI analysis. So you can take what the cost of the system is going to be and then compare that to the ROI that we've experienced from other customers just like you. We'll work with you to select the data to make sure that you agree with the data is accurate, and then you can use that ROI to kind of make a business decision that's best for you.
All right. John, are you seeing any other questions come in?
I do. I see one about are there any SaaS fee models? So the answer to the question is there are elements of the QwikTag system or the QwikTag platform that can be hosted. We don't necessarily sell QwikTag as a hosted solution. In other words, if you think of Salesforce.com, they are their own SaaS provider. We don't actually have a data center where we host QwikTag yet. We do host the ICE system. Typically what we do, though, is when we have a customer that wants to host QwikTag, we will work with a hosting partner, and we will put QwikTag up in their cloud or their data center. And so the net result is you're essentially buying QwikTag as if it were a hosted solution, and you're paying that hosting provider a monthly fee as opposed to paying us a perpetual fee, a one-time perpetual fee. So we have a variety of hosting partners that we work with. Ideally, what we want to do is put the QwikTag system as physically close to wherever your GP system is as possible. So trust me, the performance is far better. The security is far better if the QwikTag system, it should not be on the same server, but it should be on the same network as your GP server. So wherever that GP server is, that's where you're going to want to put QwikTag, ideally. I don't see any other questions, Michael.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I want to thank John for his great presentation this morning. Thank all the attendees. If there are any additional questions, everyone out there should have my email address, so shoot me an email over at mgummel@ptcllc.com, and we will certainly get the questions answered. And if you believe that this is a solution that you want to delve into in a deeper format, please let us know, and we can certainly set up a personalized demo, which we can then take and get into much more in-depth information and things that are specific to your own organization. So thank you all for joining us today, and have a great day. Thanks, John.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, I appreciate it.